So this is my review of The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger. So it's a story of a Holocaust survivor who survived the death camps at Auschwitz during Nazi occupation. Edith, who lived with her sisters Magda, Clara, as well as her mom and dad, lived in Hungary, led a relatively normal life until they were taken by the Nazis and put in a death camp, during which time her mother and father were killed. And Edith was separated from her sister Clara. Edith and Magda, however, remained together, and they depended on each other and kind of were each other's anchor in their survival. The thing that this is by far one of the most incredible books I've ever read. How I can describe this book is not just a story, unlike traditional stories that tells you what happened, whatever. This takes it one step further. Edith actually gives you a glimpse into how she felt during these traumatic events and how she kind of dealt with her coping mechanisms. And to me, that was really eye-opening, because not only for someone who survived Auschwitz, which I find, I can't even imagine. She actually said, how she coped with it, from kind of, I guess, internally breaking down. That's just beyond remarkable in my opinion. This book is divided into a number of sections. The first section I found the most interesting, and this was how her and her family ended up being taken by the Nazis. That's something I always wondered personally. I mean, I've studied, I have a past degree in political science, and I kind of, one of my concentrations was world politics, and I always wondered, I studied genocides, and I also wondered how genocides come about, how a situation can arise where, like, for example, 1 million people or a couple 100,000 people can be systematically killed. And I just wondered, like, if that situation ever occurred, I imagine that, as an individual living in that city, you would never know what's going on, maybe until it's too late. And I always wonder if there's warning signs, or, so she really kind of answered a lot of the questions, at least in her case. She showed that in her case in Hungary, that there were many warning signs on the news. Her family, a lot of people that she knew did leave, and one of the reasons why, and I think a reason that her family regrets not leaving, or one of the regrets I know that she had, was they had a chance to leave, but they decided not to leave because they felt that they didn't want to abandon their home. They didn't see the point of abandoning the only home they known. And that's something that I would kind of take the same thought process towards. In the story, there's one particular scene that really stands out, is when, after she gets separated from her mother and she gets placed in the line. If you read the story, you know what I mean. In the line for the younger girls, they get placed in a dormitory, and she finally meets Dr. Mango, which is nicknamed the Doctor Death. He's basically Hitler's, so correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Hitler's right-hand man, and he was single-handedly responsible for the killing of millions of Jews. And she meets him face to face. He takes an interest in her, and he actually asked her to dance. And she is a trained dancer, so she dances. Now she describes in the book that she dances not for him, but just for herself. She places, and this is one of the coping mechanisms that she talks about, she places herself in a different mental state, and she just pretends that she's somewhere else, and she dances her heart out. And that actually probably ends up saving her life, because Dr. Mango ends up tossing her as a reward a loaf of bread, in which she shares with the other girls, and she didn't have to. And this act actually ends up saving her life later on, when she's forced to do a death march. And in the death march, read the book if you want to know the details, but in the death march, basically anybody who collapses, they end up getting shot. So they basically just march you until you collapse. And she was on the verge of collapsing, except the girls that were with her, they end up forming a human chair for her to not collapse. And those girls were the same girls that she had shared bread with a year earlier. So yeah, everything just, words can't even describe how I feel about this book. Another particular scene, she said that like they're in a gymnasium and how she escaped the gymnasium because she saw a little garden and she wanted a carrot, and she was actually caught by one of the guards, and the guard actually felt sorry for her that anybody would be that desperate to risk their lives for a carrot, that he actually ended up just tossing some food for her and keeping quiet. So it was the first part of the book I felt that was the most moving and the most memorable. And then after her escape from she didn't actually escape. Basically what happened is the Americans liberated the part of Hungary in which she was. They found her, and then she actually got sent to a hospital where she recovered, and then from there then she planned her escape. That's where she met her husband, and then they planned her escape to the U.S. Initially they're supposed to go to Israel, and then that's another part of the story where they have to make a huge decision between going to Israel or going to the United States. They end up going to the United States, and then for their children's future, then they go to the States, and then the book goes into another part where it talks about their life in the States, and then how tough it is, and then eventually her kind of how all her traumatic memories come back and how she copes with it, her regrets, her kind of her blame for her husband, and then her kind of their move to Texas, where then she pursues college, so it just she finally finds her calling to be a doctor that can help others kind of get over their own traumatic past, and then that actually comes full circle where she actually has a chance to go back to Hungary and visit Auschwitz, and that's where she kind of liberates herself in her own mind. And so story comes full tilt. But I found the most interesting part of this book was by far the first part of the book, because it described in detail her experiences, and it was just amazing. I don't know if they made a movie out of this book, but I would definitely watch it or anything. But that first part of the book, in which she described her ordeal at the death camps, what happened, what she, to a T, exactly what she saw, what she smelled, how it smelled, everything, and then also the coping mechanisms really kind of opened my eyes to, to anything that I experienced in my own life. I know I'll be able to overcome, even just thinking about her experiences. And she's probably one of the few people on this planet which, you can't really say that, like meeting a person like this is truly an inspiration, because if she can overcome, Auschwitz, who are you to say that your life is too tough? You know what I mean? So anyway, my time's approaching 10 minutes now. So I wish I could say more, but anyway, I highly recommend this book for anybody who wants to read. I just came across this book by accident, and I highly recommend it. And until my next book, I'll see you later. Okay, so I think this is my fourth book. Anyway, so I'll talk to you later. Okay, right, thanks, bye.